So our demonstrator tonight is a fellow member, Marty Christensen, who's going to give us a demo on pens. Marty, as a lot of you know, Marty has been a long-time club member. He was our publicity chair for a long time, number of years, when the woodworking show was in town. He's been our mentoring chair for more fingers than I've got hands, maybe. Long time. What else? I guess I'll let you give all the finer details.
Talk more.
You talk more.
Thank you, everyone. I don't know, it's kind of hard to pat yourself on the back sometimes, but I've been turning since about 1990. Joined the club I'm number 250, so a long time ago. Shortly, probably, I would have to say 94, 96, something like that. My dad got interested shortly thereafter. He went to one of the woodworking shows with me that before I was actually managing the woodworking show, our booth, and he joined, and we kind of both joined together. And we've been turning crazy since. So I thank you for letting me come out and bore you for an hour and a half. I enjoy turning. I enjoy demonstrating and teaching. So this is pretty exciting for me being up here. One of my passions is pens. I've done pens before I was a member with a really small little Carbotech 1 lathe that actually Rick has still. It's probably sitting collecting dust under one of his other workbenches in his shop, but nope. There you go. It's sitting under a big one of those. So, but I've since then have grown up into bigger lathes, and I still have small lathes too that I take to demos and stuff, and I really enjoy it. But pens is one of my passions, and you can only turn standard slim line without any embellishments for so long, and then you're like, I'm bored. What do we do? When you turn bowls and you get bored, what do? You try highlighting them. You try adding pieces and decorations to them. So that's what we do. At the beginning of the session, well, the little gab session before the Pat takes over, I had Richard run one of these, a video for me. It was Mark Giesi's segmented pens. And in the video, it talks about how to make his signature pen. And if you Google Mark Giesi, not his son Brian, but Mark, you're going to see his basic style. And I have tons of pictures of it. And there's the library has this video. It's a two-part video, two videos of his. One talks about the standard pen that he does, and then the second video is a pool cue. So that's another. It's segmenting. It's when you think of segmenting, you're like, oh, it's bowls or it's different things like that. You can take it down to a small pen, and that's where I get my passion from, because then I can turn really detailed things or not so detailed if you don't want it to. So we go from a basic. I'm going to cheat because I made big pieces for all you guys that are old and can't see very well. But a basic pen that has a stripe in it, just a single stripe, is very easy to do. It's not too hard to make. You can do it on a bandsaw, you can do it on a drill or a table saw, you can do it on a chop saw. A lot of different ways to do it, and just add any size slice in the middle of it. That's your basic segment, right? Get a little more detailed and add a cross in it. So flip it 180 degrees and do it again. Well, it gets a little difficult. There you go. A little more difficult to do, because now you have to make sure your wood that you're putting in the slice is the same size as your cut on both pieces, both cuts. So now you have to plan a little ahead. How big is my cut going to be? Maybe it's a 1/4 inch. Maybe you're planning for a 1/4 inch. Maybe you're planning for just the normal 1/8 inch table saw blade that on your sled. That's the size that you have to size your inset piece. And that's the most difficult part of a segmenting when we talk about more than one slice. Unless you do a slice like that where you're putting them parallel to each other. This thing moves a lot. They don't have to be the same width. They don't have to be the same width of the cut. Doesn't have to. The wood inserts don't have to be the same size. But to do a cross or like a Celtic knot, okay, which is this done on one side, turn it 90 degrees and done again, it's pretty critical. Okay, it gets pretty bad sometimes if you're not paying attention to your gluing, and everybody has mistakes, so I'm going to pass some mistakes around. I'm not better than anybody else, so take a look at the 3 mistakes and go, oh yeah, he did. And sometimes they're wanted mistakes, sometimes they're not wanted. So look at that and you'll go, oh yeah, okay, yep. He's like the rest of us. He can make some pretty stuff too. One of the big things that I do, I have a couple different table saws, bandsaw, and I have a table saw that's probably 10 inches square and about 4 inches tall. And it has probably 3/32 or 3. Well, the diameter of the blade is 3 3/8, but it's about 3/32 wide of a kerf. So it enables me to cut some really thin lines if I want to make my segments. But what I do is I test my cut on a scrap, and then I can make sure that all my insert pieces are going to fit in it. Because sometimes they don't. You have to sand them. Sometimes you have to recut them on the table saw or bandsaw. Sometimes they get pretty hairy and you don't want to even try that and start over.
So Marty, are you cutting all the way through your blank and then filling that?
Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't.
We're not understanding why you have to have the same thickness as your cut.
These pieces that are coming around will tell you exactly why you have to have that. So if you don't have the knot is not going to, or the cross is not going to end up square in the middle of the blank. Okay, so if you look at one of the maples that's coming around, it'll be off. It's offset. You'll look at the blank, and then the top portion is offset a little bit. One of the pieces of wood was just enough larger than the lower ones, and it threw it off. Probably a 1/16 of an inch maybe, or maybe a little less. And that can cause it. And when you turn it round, if you're not dead center on that knot or that cross, it's going to look unbalanced. It's going to look wonky, yeah. It's going to, in a sense, and I'm not an artist, so this is, you have your blank, and then you have one line on it, and then the other one's going to go like that. And sometimes the blank, like that one that's coming around, actually comes in and goes like that. And they're not, the pieces aren't the same thickness, or they're not lined up when you're putting them back together. So back to your question, do I cut all the way through? When I'm doing a Celtic knot, I don't.
So are you making a single cut, gluing,
Yep.
let that dry, and then making another cut?
Yep,
Or doing one
that's
cut?
exactly right. So I start just like this, and I'm gonna let this set. So if I'm making a Celtic knot, is that a good place, or you want higher? So when I do a Celtic knot, I will cut it apart the first time, glue it in, and I know that all of my segments or all of my inlaid wood is that diameter now, or that thickness going all the way through it. I cut enough of that when I start with my sample that I know I'm going to have 4 diagonal pieces, and I'll cut a piece whatever length I need. Okay, gets glued up, sanded on all 4 sides so it's even, and then I use a square, and I'm not sure I don't think I brought the square. It's all right. So, and then I draw lines all the way around it on both sides. And you'll get tired of drawing these lines because you have to continue to do them every single time you make a cut. So you make parallel lines. And then my next cut is going to come over here, and that's where we get this one. Depends on what my material is that I'm working with. If it's a wood and wood, I'll use Type Bond 2. If it's wood and plastic, and I'll pass some of that stuff around in just a minute, I'll use CA. If it's Corian, which is, you can use that, different types of Corian to do a highlight, that takes CA. Epoxies won't work with it. Sometimes you can use a 2-part epoxy. So it just depends on what material you're using. Does that answer? I do. Yep, and that's pretty traditional with it. The question was, so you end up gluing face grain to end grain, and it is. And I haven't had any problems with movement or swelling or anything like that, because once you get it done, it's typically quite small, thickness-wise. One of the larger pens is like a cigar-style pen, and it's still under a 1/4 inch in thickness from the tube to the outside diameter. So it's not too bad. We need to get this fixed. So we mark it like this, and then we take it over to the table saw or the bandsaw, and I typically write on it somewhere what my degree is. You can do a 25, you can do a 30, something pretty standard, 30, 40, 25, 30, or 40 at the angle that you're cutting these on. 45 just seems a little too steep. I've done them at 45, they don't look good, and anything under 25 just looks too shallow. It just doesn't look good. Now there are some that will do like a 90 degree or a 60 degree, and it seems like it comes it's long and it's drawn out on a pen. Robin was actually talking about wanting to do a rolling pin. She doesn't do a lot of pins, but she wants to do a rolling pin with this style of knot in the middle of it, and it would work great. I've seen them. You just use a contrasting wood. This isn't a very good contrast, but it's a demo, so whatever. This will all get thrown in the fire this summer. So, but you mark it out and then take it over to your saw, and I typically leave probably under 1/8 of an inch that it does not cut through. Or if I'm using, like on this one, I used my chop saw because it was big enough that I could get a good thickness on it for demonstration purposes. And I left, you could see the area that I left when I cut it so that it wouldn't fall apart. That's kind of chip out, but and that enables you to put a slice back in there and not compromise the structure of it, and enable to put a good, it doesn't weaken it, because it's all going to get turned away anyways. You're not going to see any of that when you, after you drill it and turn it on the lathe to a pin. So you cut your second slice, glue it in, sand it, and then mark it again. You're not missing much if you don't. On this particular instance, it is. But let's say you don't have a table saw. Let's say you're using a bandsaw. Okay? Your bandsaw is typically a pretty thin blade. So set your table on your bandsaw to 30 degrees or whatever, and use a slide and slide it in so it doesn't come out the other end, at the other side. Come out, move it up a little bit, and get your width that you have. Use stop blocks on your table if you want to, or on your slide, enabling you to get the same width every single time you cut it, because you're going to do 4 cuts. Does that make sense? Table saw the same way. If you want to use, like the little table saw that I use for my segmenting, I can move it over and put stop blocks on it and run it through and get the same exact width every single time. And it's pretty important. Question?
Yeah, clarify depth of cut. I mean, are you cutting to the center of the piece, just shy of, or past?
Up to 1/8 of an inch through the whole piece.
You're talking thickness, I'm talking depth, I believe.
Same thing. Here's my blank, here's my cut. Okay?
So you are going
Most of the way through. You want to be able to you want to go almost all the way through so that that piece, once the corners and stuff are turned off, is gone. Okay? Cleared? Understood? Glue your piece back in there and make it, and then sand it. Okay? Turn it 90 degrees from after you mark the lines again. Cut from corner to corner. I would pay attention to the direction. One's on top of the other, as you can see here in this. This is a good one to look at right here. One's on top of the other line. Okay, when you turn it, it doesn't have to be, but it's a good idea to do the same thing on that side. Does that make sense? And on this one is not a good example because it's not. Cut your slice the same way, going almost all the way through, leaving it a little short to add the rigidity to it so you can put your insert in, glue it in, sand it, line it again, and cut it the other diagonal. So now you have four slices in it. Everybody up to there? Everybody following me? All right. You have two X's. Yep. One on. Yep. That is what they traditionally call that is the Celtic knot. Yep. Okay. Now, we got to go one step further because we're making a pin out of it, whether it be the top or the bottom or whatever, like these blanks that I passed around. If they would have turned out, I would have taken the tube from the pin, and that would have been the top half of the pin. Okay? Unless you wanted to make it the bottom, but typically the detail's on the top part of the pin. Size your blanks. But what you have to do is you also have to mark the blank. You got to go through the center of it to make sure it's parallel all the way around it. Okay? And that is where you drill on the lathe so that you make sure you're parallel all the way through it. Because if you're not, then you're going to have, once it's turned, your knot's going to go up and down, and all the high points are going to be like this, and it's going to look just as bad as the pen, the blanks that came around, and that's why they're not turned, because they would look like crap. Okay? Does that make sense? Looking at some blank stares. You're gonna drill when you make a pen. You drill out that center for your tube, and that has to be dead center, or you're going to be off, and the knot that you created is going to be high on one side and low on the other. Yep. And it's easier because you got to find the center on the ends, and now you're going to do that without drawing parallel lines all the way around it. When you drill for the pin insert, the pin tube, yes. Any questions on the Celtic knot? Yes.
Explain when you say knot, what you really mean, or what it looks like. Do you have a finished one?
I don't have a finished one. I moved middle of the month last month, and my pen, my box with all my pens is actually, I don't know. I looked for it this weekend. I couldn't find it. So I know it's around. I just don't know where. So yeah, I feel kind of bad. I sent Pat a picture that was in the newsletter with a Celtic knot in it. And actually that pen has actually been sold. So yes. Inserts. Good question. Thank you. I'll give you the $5 later, okay? No. Let's talk about inserts. We talk, we can go from wood on wood, okay? This is pine on pine, so that's not very good, but actually it's pine on hemlock firs, what these are, to give a little contrast, but I wasn't going to waste good wood on a pine blank. But typically you want to go with a contrasting wood that looks good against each other. Walnut and maple, Paduke and maple, Kingwood and cherry, or it all depends on a good contrasting wood to show the pattern that you're created. Okay, because you want to highlight that. I did the pen that actually was in the newsletter. I made that for a customer. She didn't want it, and she wanted it, so I made it the way she wanted it, and then she's like, oh, but I wanted it this way, and she didn't want it round and whatever. So I made her another one, and I sold them both. So But you wanted the wood to not be a drastic difference like what we traditionally think of as an inlay piece that will highlight maybe some markings in the wood or something like that. We all know that if you have a high-figured piece of wood, does it need any other detail in it? Maybe not. So, but you can use wood on wood. Okay, yes? It is. It is. I'm sorry. Thank you. Yeah, your blank needs to be 90 degrees. All corners need to be 90 degrees to each other. So when you sand it, it'll stay true. And then you can get they'll all line up correctly too at that point. Bruce, you're bringing up another can of worms and you shouldn't bring it up. We're woodworkers for a reason. Let's you gotta do some work to get something beautiful, so that might be part of it. You're not sanding that much off the edges. Like all the ones that came around were probably 3/4 inch or 5/8 square when I started. Some of them that I have up here are 7/8 inch square. And they're pretty thin. Actually, you can pass this around if you want. This is a box elder burl with red and white maple. I'm sorry? Maybe. Oh, there you go. So here's the Celtic knot one. If you can, I don't know if you can zoom in and see that. That's cherry on cherry, actually, and I used a black CA glue on it to give it some contrast so you could actually see it because it blended in so well. She didn't like because it was a little too round. She wanted it straight across. So I made another one and made it straight across, and it looked too plain to me, but I like the detail. I like the little bit of a rounded pen feels better in your hand, my opinion. But I'm not writing with it. She is, so whatever. All right, and then this is just the standard one that I had, a single. And actually, this one can be bringing around. You can see kind of what it turns out. The red and white one, that's what it looks like after it's turned. The what? I'm sorry? Okay, Mark Giese. Actually, kind of. I've been doing this before Mark put this video out. So, his aspect of it is a step like way above, because instead of being check it out, watch it, and go, oh, that's what he's talking about. Giese, G-I-S-I. G-I-S-I, yeah. Yep. I actually have 2 copies of this because I don't know, dumb enough I bought 2 of them, I guess. I didn't realize I had 2 of them. Library has one, has it already, I think. Do you have the Giese collection? You do? Yes, he does. Is it checked out? Oh, it should be. Should be. That's one that should be checked out every month. So let's go back to what are we using for insert, okay? Mark Giese, if you watched it, instead of talking with your friends, which, hey, it was background noise is what it really was. He designed a plastic lamination. He didn't design it. He promotes it and sells it. And it comes in different thicknesses and color options, and we'll pass them both around. This is a solid color, and then he has 2 and 3 color option where you can get 2 different colors and then 3 different colors on it. And I was lucky enough to actually be at a show and found out that I can get this stuff a whole lot cheaper than the price that he has on that package. So when I get my stuff together, I will be offering it to the club at a complete huge savings for the segmenting stuff. I don't know price with shipping and stuff like that, what it's going to end up being, but it's very similar to that. Yeah, these guys are talking about that it's a guitar. If anybody plays a guitar, the pick guard that's on a guitar is what this is a very similar product. Guitar pick stuff is very expensive and very hard to come by unless it's in the shape. Well, this stuff is in big sheets. So it will be available soon. So this is one product, very thin. In fact, my table saw, when it cuts it, is that's a little too thick for my table saw blade. So I have to move it over a little bit. That's how thin my table saw blade cuts. I have to move it over a little bit to get that thickness. Or I put a carbide blade on my table saw and it's a little wider than that. So there's no happy medium in the middle of it. I have to be creative when I do it. So it's a plastic. Yeah, it's a plastic sheet. It's coming around. You can get corian samples. You get online, and anybody that sells hard surface countertop or man-made hard surface countertops, I call it corian because I'm old school and it's been around forever and that's what it was, but there are half a dozen different brands out there. It's just a solid surface material. Typically comes in under a half inch, 3/8, quarter, 3/8, or half inch. There's a few people that you can get some that are 3/4 inch thick, but typically it's 3/8 or half. And cutting this on normal woodworking tools and on a bandsaw and then cleaning it up with a drum sander works really well to get a nice contrast because it's different. Thank you. Corian comes in flake that you can't find anywhere else. Some of the patterns that they have look really unique when you cut them at a diagonal. And yes, these are little samples. Oh, they're still coming around. They're on the second row here yet. Oh, where did they end up stopping at? Send them back. If you guys saw them, send them back. Yep. Where was that? Oh, corian. So corian works is really a nice highlight to wood or another piece of corian. Maybe you get white, black is hard to come by, but the flake is fairly easy to come by because most countertop companies that do it, they have to cut a sinkhole, and if they don't cut it and leave it, clean it up for the edge and leave it for the homeowner that's getting it, they take it back to the shop and it gets set in a corner someplace and collects dust. You go into these countertop companies and go, hey, do you have any samples or whatever? They might give them to you. Yeah, backsplashes, same thing. They're 3.5 or 4.5 inches tall, and they'll just give you the cutoffs that they're not using for a customer's house. Yes? Yep. A little bit of flavor goes along, or favors go a long ways in this business, or in any business, really. And a little appreciation on your part to giving them something. And it might be that he gives you a little bit, and you tell him, hey, I'm going to bring one back. And he's, in the back of his mind, he's thinking, I'll never see this guy again, whatever. You come back in a week or so, and you say, hey, thank you very much. Here's the pen that I made with the product you gave me. He's going to go, whoa, this guy was upstanding. He brought it back. And he's going to say, come on, let's go look for some more. And then you're going to fill up the back of your trunk or the bed of your trunk, and you're going to go, holy crap, what do I need to do with this? And then your wife goes, what are you doing with all this stuff, right? And then you move and you have to figure out what you're going to do with all this stuff, right? I give it away. That's a whole problem within itself. So, plastic on plastic. I was playing around a year or so ago. I did a demo at the Rocky Mountain Woodturning Symposium on segmenting pens, and in doing research for that, I I found a pattern on, I don't know if it was Pinterest or one of the social media places, but it was a white blank with a red stripe in it. And this is basically what it looked like, the blank, if you can zoom in on it. And I'm going to flip it, and it's just the same all the way around it. Okay, and I use graph paper to graph it out because I couldn't figure out how they did it at first. Okay? And I have since created it short of these two outside lines, these four outside lines actually. Okay? And when you cut it or turn it, you have to make the slices. Yeah, that product is very expensive. But when you cut it, you have to cut it deep enough to go past halfway mark, or it doesn't show through on your turned pen. You cut it all away. Okay? So when we create this blank, it needs to be a little more fine-tuning by cutting it over halfway through to be able to see the detail in the end. And this isn't a good representation. This is, though. And it's not finished, though. So, but we can pass that around and take a gander at it. It's not done. I just said that. It was in a blank. It wasn't turned. It was a final, it wasn't even, it was a blank sample on what you can do, and I don't know what it ends up turning like. I do not know what it looks like yet. I will bring it in when it's done. Yeah. And
So Marty, when you're cutting that plastic,
mm-hmm.
how are you getting that smooth enough to get rid of glue lines, or are you getting rid of glue lines when you do your plastic?
I haven't had a problem with inserting, gluing stuff in. Like this one is, I don't sand inside the cut lines. No, no. I keep your blade sharp enough you don't have to worry about it. Let's put it blunt. Okay, if you got dull blades and it's burning wood, you should take it off and get it sharpened. If you need a place to get it sharpened, B&R Tool on 70th and between Broadway and Pecos does a really good job sharpening blades. Broadway, Childers. Yep. So, yeah, keep your tools sharp, keep your blank sharp, blade sharp, and change out your bandsaw blades. They need to make the money, and you need to have sharp tools. So, and we'll do sharpening in a couple months going forward with mentoring. So look for that. So we'll be breaking out the Wolverine and different types of jigs to show you how to keep your wood turning tools sharp. But okay, so yeah, I mean, going back to the blade, I don't sand inside my cuts because I don't worry about it. I spend a little bit of money that it needs to be to keep my blade sharp. And that's why I can cut half-inch corian in half and not fret about it. You know, now the corian, probably putting it on a piece of glass that I have taped down, or that I have sandpaper that has sticky back on it, and I put it down and I clean up anything on the corian just to smooth it out on the insert. Works quite well. And that yellow blank that's coming around, please, that's got Corian on it inside the plastic. So when you see it, you wonder what the material is. It's Corian stripes in the plastic, or a solid surface material, not Corian. Maybe that's a better way of putting it. I'm not getting paid to say Corian, so I shouldn't say it, right? Other types of segmenting that you can do. Can you zoom in on that? Do we need back up just a little bit, maybe get the whole thing? Okay, so this is walnut. And it's aluminum flashing. Pop can. Okay, I've seen people use pop can. You have to sand the paint off the one side and the coating on the inside when you use pop can. Aluminum for that. It's just easier. Go down to hardware store, Home Depot, buy a roll of 6-inch aluminum flashing, roofing flashing, or they make 6x6 roofing or squares that you can cut up. I sand those also to get any creosote or any oils off of them from the manufacturing process, but it's not hard. It doesn't take a lot of time. Just sand the surface of them. It'll scratch them up. And I typically use CA glue, I believe. It was a question was asked before the break or before we started the meeting, and I can't remember. This was done about 6 months ago, but I believe I used CA when I glued this up, and we pounded on it pretty good, and it's not coming apart. So I haven't had any problem. Now, we talked also that I got a little carried away, and Woodturners, we do that sometimes. On this blank, if you look at it, it's got a zigzag pattern. Well, I got a little crazy, so I did a zigzag pattern like this. I said, well, what would happen if I did it on this side and did the same exact thing? A zigzag across it and crisscross in the zigzag and put aluminum in all of it. And I made 3 blanks doing it that way. And I cut them off into the blank that I needed to. And I did a demo for our pen club in Fort Collins. And as I was drilling it during the demo, it proceeded to explode on me. I was like, oh, crap. All right, man, let's slow the lathe down a little bit, glue it back together with CA glue, wait about 5 minutes and told some jokes and blah, blah, blah. And started drilling again, and it blew up again on me. I was like, maybe I was a little too carried away with that many stripes. So we went back to 1. And it's not turned yet, but I'm hoping it turns out. So, man, the slot on this one was cut on jigsaw. Or a scroll saw, yeah. Stationary scroll saw. Yes? Maybe. I mean, I don't know, because I don't know, maybe. I don't know. One of these days it'll work for me, I guarantee it. I'll make it work. You think so? Some of you guys witnessed the blow up. Yes, sir. It's not, I don't know. Could be. I would believe that more than the heat. I would believe that more than the heat, because well, that's the blade I used. It's the Colt from Woodcraft. So it's not a brad point, but it's kind of a brad point. But we will try it again eventually. So any questions on what I've just talked about. Inserts. This one came back up to me. We have a red and white one. Did you guys get to see this one, or do you want to look at this one too? This is the solid green. Okay. And they make different colors. Here's a solid blue, and they so with that plastic, begins to wonder, what else can you use for an insert that's plastic like that? How many of us stayed at hotels recently, or ever, the last 10 years? And you get a key card, right? It's the same plastic, guys. There's no difference in the plastic. Key cards are just a little thicker than what I passed around.
So when you're using these plastic sheets, whatever material it is, are you roughing them up so it's
I am. I got a piece of glass that I have at the house that I've got 6-inch wide, 6 inch? Yeah, I think it's 6-inch wide self-adhesive sandpaper on, and I just put it down and sand it, flip it over, sand it. I think it's 80. I mean, even 120 would probably be rough enough. It's not, it's been a long time. So I just sand it back and forth like that, and it's roughed up enough that I know CA glue is going to get into the pores that I created, and it's going to hold. Yes?
clarify, on the inserts you were talking about cutting most of the way through, but then on the aluminum can, you cut that all the way.
I did, because it didn't make a difference. You know, the aluminum can, I knew what diameter I was putting, and I just put it back in and cut the other side and put it back together, squished it, and it forms, and glued it up.
You can also go to Home Depot or to the flooring department and get little samples, and they're like a 16th or less thickness.
Of what?
They're like a plastic.
Like for countertop? For mica? Yeah, that reminds me. They burn ring, wood burning rings is, Formica is great for that. I don't, I've never used Formica in this aspect. I will try it. I've got a bunch, so. It is, and that's the same with these geesey plastic pieces that I'm sending around and that you guys looked at. That's all the way through. The plastics from your room keys and cards and stuff is going to be, any detail on the front doesn't make any difference at all. You need to look at the edge, and typically it's white. Okay, so if you need white insert or white contrast, that's a good thickness to use. And honestly, you just build up your thicknesses until you get the thickness you want of what your insert's going to be. You know, I always have a sample of the wood that I'm using for the blank, and I cut the saw kerf in it right when I'm doing it. So if you send your blade out to get sharpened, it comes back. Make sure it might change a little bit in width, and it may not. Check it, have a sample, and just use your thickness until you get a nice tight thickness on it. Now, kids were at Dave & Buster's a while back, and they're horse racing. I don't know if they still even do it anymore there. But I'm going to pass this around, but I want it back because I don't have any more of it. Feel how thin this plastic is. And it works because I've used 3 other ones just like it to make up when the plastics that I was using wasn't thick enough to fill the whole gap. I could use that in the middle of it, and it makes it a tight, and you don't have any dead airspace in the, and that alone could cause blow up when you're gluing it. That would work too. Now the report covers that I've seen, CA glue doesn't adhere very well to it. Yeah. Okay, so you're using a different type of glue than CA. So that, I mean, try it. If it works for you, power to you. Okay. Yep. Yeah. And is it a two-part epoxy type? Similar? Is that what that is? Okay. Oh, you're talking for the scale itself. Okay. Yeah. But so the plastic we're passing around is 3/32 typically. They make it all the way up into 1/8 inch because that's what I've got in my hand here. And it's actually camo, blue camo, military blue camo with the digital camo, I guess is what they call it. The camo doesn't show up on your finished pin. It's only white because that's what the end is. Okay, so keep that in mind when you have it. Now, if it's the yellow and black like I have here, it's all the way through. It's solid, so that's what you're going to see at the end of your pen or your slice. Just like the red and white one that's coming around, that's dyed maple. Inlay, yeah. So feel the plastic the Gene has. It's super thin. I don't even know what thickness it is, but it works to fill in the voids, and I wish I could get more of it. Yes, Rick? It is. This is actually roofing flashing, gutter flashing, coming off the roof gutter into the, but yeah, it's one thickness. I can pass it around. Just be careful, it's a little sharp on the edge. I haven't. I have. Does it? So T88 supposedly glues anything, so works quite well. Okay. Did everybody get to see this stuff? Good enough. The aluminum's coming around. I just started it. So let's dive into something a little more in depth. On that write-up that I sent Pat, also had another picture of a pepper grinder. Where'd that go, Pat? Do you have it? Yeah. So it's a pepper grinder, and there's a pin next to it. I don't know if you can. Pen looks like the pepper grinder, except for I specifically made the lines on the pin not line up. I wanted the pin to look like an old England castle. So back in the day, they weren't perfect like what you'd look at a bricklaying job that you hire somebody to do brick. That brick better be even all the way up and down that wall. I specifically did not want that on this pin. So when you look at it and go, oh my God, that looks like crap. Nah, this was intended this way, and I made 3 pens. I own one of them, my dad owns one of them, I sold one for $280. It worked. After that, my wife's like, I want a pepper grinder. Seriously? So she got a pepper grinder. It is specific on the other side, and if you look at it, the pepper grinder was designed that the top, where the joint is the same diameter as the bottom of the base of the tower. So it angles, it is an angled piece down. And Yeah, my wife won't let me make another one of those or sell that one, so. But yeah, it is. So let's talk about how I made that pen. That pen has in the realm of about 350 pieces in it. 354, give or take one or two. So it's kind of funny. This isn't my idea, but when I made this pen, it was about '09 is when I designed it. I was bored at work one day and I designed it on a piece of graph paper. And I did it all, made it. About a month after that, I started looking on the internet and stuff. And sure enough, Don Ward out of Arizona had made one. Didn't know it, but he had made one, and it's pictured on a burl cap that he has it stuck in. And it's like just a matter of, so when somebody says, "Oh, that's the first I designed," no, you didn't. You haven't seen it yet. Somebody else has made it. So I don't know how he made his. All I know is how I designed, how I did this when I made it. So bear with me, and we'll go through this a little bit. What timer we got? 8:15. So we got a little bit of time. So basically, let's use this as a platform, and then we can focus on that. So first cut on making this blank is one slice all the way through it. Okay? And all these thicknesses of the insert is all the same thickness every single time I do it. Okay? Same thickness as my saw blade. Here's the second one. Sanded once it's done. Third. Setup for that is a little difficult sometimes. No? It might be. Okay.
Clarify when you say sanded, are you just sanding the sides of the insert? Or are you sanding the sides of the blank?
Okay, so when I sand, I cut apart, glue the insert in, and then I'm sanding all four sides or two sides, here and here, here, and here. Anytime that insert could hang over the edges of it, I want it smoothed down to the sides of the blank. Okay? So we're at 3. Now we're at 4. And this one, actually, I did it on purpose. I want that gap in the middle of it. Okay? Correct. I'm sanding it down to the surface of what is there, yeah. Yeah, the insert's oversized and I sand it down to the blank. Yep. Carefully, yeah. If I told you, I'd have to kill you. No, I don't know. It's being careful. I mean, having this particular one, unfortunately, I have a sanding jig that I don't know where, or a gluing jig that I put wax paper on, and I clamp it. I clamp the piece in the jig. It's a 90-degree jig this way and 90 degrees this way, and I clamp it in the corner here, and I have clamps this way and this way, and it doesn't. I don't have any slippage diagonally out or anything on it. So, and it's packed somewhere. I will find that, and honestly, I will have a shop open house eventually when I get settled in the new house. So, So we have the second diagonal that we did, and I left the insert in the middle on purpose, right? So it can be drilled out. Okay, so we drill out with a drill bit. Here's my clamp. And this one actually, this was put together with Type Bond 2. And this is how it's clamped together. So what I'll do is I'll go back to my table saw and I'll have my sled and I cut whatever thickness of layer, I'm going to call it, and then I just run a bunch of them through. Once I've drilled it, have my hole drilled in it like that. Okay? So I have a bunch of layers, segments layered, and then I start it's a bolt or a screw with a large fender washer on it. And then I just start layering them on top of one another with glue in between them and moving them, and then clamping every other layer or every 2 layers for about 10 or 15 minutes till it sets up, and then go back and add another layer. And each layer consists of a slice and a veneer, because you got grout lines going this way and this way. Okay? So once you get it all said and done, the castling at the top, I left it a little large. Type Bond 2, because it's all wood. It's a different pattern that I was designing, yeah. Yep. But this is the same process to make that original pen, yeah. What I did with this one is I was leaving windows. Yeah, and then I go back with a detail 20,000 RPM with a dental pick in it and clean it all up. Very tedious, that's why it's not finished. That's way too much brain damage for me, I think. I don't know. Processing turquoise is something that is a trick all by itself. After creating this, and made 3 pens, and my dad, like I said, my dad has one, I have one, and I sold one. It was quite interesting to do, but I wanted another challenge, because cutting them up like we're doing here, it created some issues that I didn't like. So I decided, let's try to not cut all the way through. Okay? So I'm going to show you this. If you'll zoom in on the end of it, and you'll see what I was doing by not cutting all the way through. Okay? And this is what it ends up being in the end. And then you drill the hole out, and it turns out the same. Which direction? Okay? So you get the same finish as this one, with a different process. It was. Because my slices, this is all I was gluing up. Where are we at here? So that's all I was gluing up. That's what I was gluing into my cuts. And it was a lot safer to cut it, first off, because I'm going just under halfway through, because I'm drilling out the center so it doesn't make any difference. So then you can insert them and glue them up pretty easily. But it gives you that same look that I created with this pen. And it's fairly easy to leave a window out in this one where it's not this way. Okay? Questions? Yeah, I'm not like that.
I think I'm with you, but clarify, after you do all your inserts, orc cuts and inserts,
Okay?
you've got your long blank, and then you're just cutting that into slices and then stretching those slices together?
I am, and then I'm putting a piece of blank, or the grout line, if you want to call it, in between as I'm building them up. It is. Typically it is, yeah.
And do you have any design or order at which you rotate those individual slices?
Really, the slices just halfway between the one line and this line, you know, just make it look good. If you want a lot of spirals, there's a lot of different designs out there. These are just ones that I was playing with, and I enjoyed playing with them. So, any questions? And yes, this one is actually made out of palm, black palm, and that's why it's not finished. I cut some up and glued it up, and then it just kind of, it shatters. You've got to stabilize it before you use it, and that's why this has never been finished. So it is, and I didn't know it. I mean, when somebody goes, "Ooh, I got palm," I'm like, I want to try it. I want to play. Bring me in. And then you play with it, and you're like, I don't want to play no more. Go away. So that's one of those things that it goes in that baggie, and it'll stay. And when people want to talk about segmenting, I'll bring it out, and we'll talk some more. So I don't have a stabilizing system yet, but I know somebody that does. You can hide, but I know where you live. So, any questions, guys? It's packed. It's in Craig, actually. The process of moving and stuff, I didn't want to take the chance of somebody taking it with them while they were looking at my house before I sold it. So all my wood turning pretties went in a box and went to Craig with mother-in-law. So I know where they're at. They're safe. And I will get them back soon. Any other questions, comments? All right, thank you. No sawdust. We can make sawdust. How much time we got? We got 30 minutes. No, we won't. Let's not. Yes. I have no clue. I haven't bought. Well, let me clarify that. Before Christmas, I did make an order for some pens and stuff, and I didn't have any problem before Christmas. So. Oh, yeah, I didn't have any problems. Knock on wood, didn't have any problems with them. Yes? Okay, somebody's got some walnut logs for sale, it sounds like.